Hi everybody, and welcome to a bit of a pre-video video. Now, I'm just preparing some more of my dad's kit-built, scratch-built white metal Locos, ready for a video which I'm going to be making tomorrow. Hello everybody, it's another Mike's Movies featuring the amazing Locos that my dad built, and who better to talk about the Locomotives than my dad?
Hi there. All the best.
Right, so without further ado, let's move on to the first locomotive and we'll bring it round on track one. What we've got for you, everybody, is a London, Brighton and South Coast C2. Okay, it's amazingly detailed, Dad. You must have put a lot of time into that.
Well, yes, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to not be able to distinguish between a photograph of the real thing and the model. Every little thing that was necessary, sort of back pipes and joints and crack valves, yeah, and crew and
real coal
in there, yeah, real coal, lamp irons, whistles, everything.
And you had a friend in Gosport that had a shop, didn't you?
That's right, it was Roger Scott in Gosport. I used to visit there quite a lot.
I remember that most Saturdays.
Yeah, yes, it was a train model shop, and that was where I would get all the small details and bits that were necessary to make it look real.
Okay, well let's let the audience have a little look at her running now then. The London, Brighton and South Coast Railway C2 class was an 060 steam locomotive intended for heavy freight trains. 55 were built by the Vulcan foundry between 1893 and 1902 to the design of Robert J. Billington. "45 of these were later rebuilt between 1908 and 1940 with a larger boiler as a Class C2X. The new class was not as powerful as their predecessors, but were found to be both reliable and also capable of running at speed, thereby enabling them to be used on secondary passenger and excursion duties. Well, she certainly runs very smoothly. This one's fitted with an Anchorage D11 motor, not particularly big motor, but seems to be up to the job. Now, many of my YouTube viewers have been massively impressed by your locomotives, and rightly so, but one question they keep asking me is how long would it take to build one? Now that's going to depend very much on what you had to do. This was obviously a straightforward kit, so all told, maybe putting in 4 or 5 hours an evening and more at the weekends, how long do you reckon before one would be ready?
Well, I was still working at the time, so it's sort of, I had something else to do. I couldn't retire and just build things then, but I suppose all in all it took about a month to do the various operations to get the, painted and everything
before it would be ready and running like we see her now.
Oh yeah.
Now if you had to scratch build the chassis, I should imagine that would add a significant amount of time.
Yes, of course. And
a lot of your Locos do have scratch built chassis.
Yes, that's right.
So there we go everybody, around about a month from start to finish, maybe 4 or 5 hours every single evening and more at the weekends as was allowed by other duties. Well, next up we have a Stroudley E1 tank.
Well,
it was indeed a Brighton engine. By the end there were over 80 of these built.
Yeah.
This is a classic looking thing with a driver looking out the window,
yeah,
and everything. Okay, so this one was scratch built completely back in the 50s when you were still living with your mum and dad.
Oh yes, that's a very early model of mine.
So apart from the wheels and the motor, everything else you made yourself?
Well, more or less.
So for example, this rib across the roof, how would you have done that?
Well, it was a domed roof in actual fact on the prototype, but you couldn't do it in any easy way. So it was a flat piece of metal for the basic bit, and then the domed part was filed from a solid, thicker piece of metal, soldered on top of that, and then the decorative strap across the top was another layer.
Oh, blimey.
So, you know...
So if people wanted to know how long that took, that was a long time ago and we can't remember.
Oh, well, yeah.
No. Anyway, she's a lovely looking engine. She has actually got brushes on the backs of her wheel pickups.
Yes, well, that
a larger picture will appear shortly, don't worry. A way to stop them wearing through the thinner pickup wires, I suppose.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
That's quite a refinement. Now, one thing that stands out for me is that all your Locos seem to be based on the summer of 1938. Why was that?
Well, this was when it made most impact upon me, I suppose. I was 5 years old then, and I'd just started school near where the railway was, and my father worked nearby in SCATS, which was Southern Counties Agricultural Trading Society.
I'm glad you remembered that.
And, you know, it was... So I have spent quite a lot of time going...
Well, standing on the footbridge watching the trains running by.
Well, yes, and I even used to have rides in the lorry at weekends when they were delivering. Yeah.
Funny you should say that. I found this photograph, which appears to show your dad. I think he's the chap on the right-hand side, isn't he?
Oh, he is, absolutely.
Yeah. And there's a SCATS lorry in the background. So.
Yeah.
Now, SCATS eventually became Wessex Plant Hire, didn't they?
Well, the building was, yes.
And used to have a siding by it. Now, I've got a picture of that.
Oh, yes.
Which will let people at home
yes,
see.
SCATS had its own siding in those days.
Fantastic. Okay. So from that footbridge, you must have been able to see the little Hailing Billy running.
Oh, yes, that they run to Hailing Island.
Pulled by these little fellas.
Oh, yes, the Brighton Terrier. Again, designed by William Stroudley in the early days.
So the E1 is really a grown-up terrier, perhaps.
You could say that, yes.
Let's put them next to each other. Yes, it's significantly grown up, perhaps.
Yes.
There we go. Let's let her run out of shot now, then. Plenty of power there. She's very heavy. The London Brighton and South Coast Railway E1 class was an 060 steam tank engine, designed by William Stroudley in 1874 for short distance goods and piloting duties. They were originally classified as E-class and known as E-tanks. They were reclassified E1 in the times of D.E. Marsh. The first 6 locomotives of this useful and long-lived class were built at Brighton and appeared in traffic between September 1874 and March 1875. They performed well, and further orders were placed at regular intervals until December 1891, when the class consisted of 80 locomotives and were used throughout the London Brighton and South Coast system, principally for goods and shunting, but occasionally for secondary passenger duties. In 1884, Stroudley also built one example of the class, number 157, named Barcelona, with a large boiler and Gladstone type cylinders with valves underneath to work on steeply graded lines between Eastbourne and Tunbridge rails. The special E-tank was withdrawn in 1922. And now, streaming by, we have a Drummond D15 of the London South Western. She was a BEC kit, but has a scratch-built chassis. So that would have been an example of one that would have took a long time to build then.
Yeah, it would have.
So we'll just bring her into a stop and have a look at her in a bit more close up. We've stopped her express activities. Now I noticed here you've modelled the valve gear underneath.
Oh well, yes, it was pretty obvious with that high standing boiler like that. And of course you have to put in the lamp irons and everything else to make it fully detailed up to the standards that I wanted.
Oh, she's certainly a she's very tall looking, isn't she?
Oh yes.
Very successful Locos as well, these ones were.
Yes.
This one's fitted with an XO4 frame and a 1001 5-pole armature.
Right.
Let's just get her going again. She hardly seems to notice this 8-coach train she's got. The London South Western D15 Class 440 was the last steam locomotive designed by Drummond for the London and South Western Railway in 1912. By 1912, Drummond had built several classes of unsuccessful 460 express passenger locomotives. His last class in 1911, a new 440 design, emerged from Eastleigh Works in February 1912, with what was to be the first of his D15 class. The D15s performed exceptionally well and were put to work on trains to Bournemouth, where many drivers noted their superior operational characteristics. This was due to a marked reduction in coal, water and oil consumption and easier maintenance. And last off today, we have a Drummond T9. There she is, very elegant creature. Now this one, I understand, you built from bits and pieces of kits that were left over.
Oh yes, yes.
Well, done a good job with that.
Yes, it's lovely. She's a favourite of mine, really.
Oh right, well it's funny you should say that, because my friend, British Railway 33017, Callum from Ireland, also says that the T9s are his favourite locomotives.
Yeah.
Hello Callum, thanks for all the support.
Well, I used to love the flower pot chimney, as I called it. It was a stovepipe, you know.
I like the 8-wheel tender on this one.
Oh yeah, bogey tender.
Let's have a go round. Oh, wrong engine.
Some T9s had 6-wheel tender.
Right. She's a narrow cab version, this one, isn't she?
Yes, there was a wide cab as well, which came later.
And she's got a
6-wheel
short
tender.
train of suburban southwestern coaches behind her.
Yeah, that would be typical.
Stream around. There we go. Now it's a classic mechanism for you, isn't it? This is a 1001 armature XO4 frame, 40-to-1 Romford gears.
Absolutely. A good spec, that.
Yeah, very good specs indeed. It performs beautifully. Well, there she is in a bit more close-up. It's only one of these preserved at the National Collection, number 120.
Yes, that's right.
Now, you know something about the numbering system of these locos, Dad?
Yes, the original companies that had their own 3-digit numbers on their engines, these three, and they're typical. And the Brighton had a 2 put in front of their number.
Okay.
The London, Southeastern and Chatham had a 1 put in front, but the London South Western just kept to their 3-digit number.
They weren't changing, they were going to stay as they were?
No.
Ah, that's interesting. The London South Western Railway T9 class of 66 440 steam locomotives were designed for express passenger work by Drummond and introduced to service on the London South Western in 1899. One example has been preserved after British Railways ownership. Intended for express passenger work on the South West England lines, 66 were eventually built and saw several improvements throughout their service careers. The class operated until 1963, when the last example, number 30120, was withdrawn. .30120 was preserved by the National Rail Museum. T9 class were well liked by their crews and gained the nickname Greyhounds early in their operational career due to their good turn of speed. Okay, well that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Dad, do you want to say goodbye to the people out there?
I hope you enjoy the fruits of my labour. They used to think I was nutty concentrating on trains all the time, but
look what we've got now.
yeah.
Perhaps we can organise another video if this one does well. Cheerio then.
Bye.